Hi guys, this is Cyber of Cyber Unlimited and welcome to today's Typography Thursday. Though technically this has very little to do with typography. Today we are going to set up a basic scene in Cinema 4D, and the techniques we'll learn will include modeling, texturing and lighting up a scene. So we'll start from how to model an Android character using just the basic parametric objects, the cylinder, the sphere, cube. And we'll also learn how to create outlines in Illustrator from your logos and import them into Cinema and create 3D objects from them. We'll also learn how to shutter objects in Cinema. So let's start. First of all, we need to prepare our scene. Okay, so we go to render settings. We want this to be full HD, so we go to film and video and choose HD TV. We are not going to be making any animation, so you can choose any that you prefer. Okay, so with this we can now close and start preparing our scene. First of all, we will need a floor object, so you can get that over here, a plane. Press T to scale, click anywhere and drag up. So we name our plane floor, double click to rename. Okay, then we are now going to create our Android character. So as I said, we are going to use just the simplest of shapes. So first of all, we need a sphere. The sphere is pretty big, so let's reduce the size to about 50. Good. Then under the type options, you choose hemisphere, so it cuts it into two. So now if we render, this is what we have. For now, let's turn off our floor object. When we render, this is what we have. Now when you take a closer look at our sphere, you realize it has some jagged edges. It's not so smooth. So to make it smooth, we increase the number of segments to a higher number, say 40. Let's take a look. Still not there yet. 50. Okay, pretty close. And that's the first part. So this will serve as the head. The basic Android character has this head shape from sort of like a semi-sphere or a hemisphere. And next we need a cylinder, because when you check, you can see that the body is made of a cylindrical shaped object. So get a cylinder. The height is too much, so we reduce it to probably 80. Still too much. Let's reduce it to 60. Cool. Or even 70. But what you need to know is the radius of the cylinder must be equal to the radius of the head. So they are both 50 and we are good to go. So we rename the cylinder body. Okay, and when we look at our reference picture, you can see the top and bottom of the cylinder is sort of rounded. So to achieve that look, we go to caps and fillet, and we reduce the number of segments. we reduce the radius of it. So I think 3 is cool. 5 and 3, yeah, looks pretty good. Okay, even 2, let's see. Yeah, 2 also looks good. So next we need to create the hands and the feet. So we'll take, this time we'll use a capsule. Again, very big. Reduce the height to about 40. Pull it out so we can see, and reduce the radius to about 10. Put it closer to the body, let's say 63 centimeters, and we duplicate it by clicking on the left mouse button and holding Control at the same time and moving in any direction. So we move it, and we put a negative 63 centimeters away, so it's very symmetrical. Let's render it and see. Okay, so that's what we have so far. It looks okay already. Alright, now our head must come down a bit. Okay, so we are getting it. And let's see, we need to rename our capsules. So this will be left hand, and this will be right hand. Okay, next we need to create our legs. So we'll just duplicate our right hand and call it right leg, and we will position it six centimeters from the base. Then we will duplicate that and position it 27 centimeters on the x-axis. So 27. I'm using the figure so that everything will be proportional and symmetrical. Okay, so our Android character is taking shape, and so what do we do next? I think from our picture, Android guide has some antenna of sorts. Okay, so we would use another capsule. Again, set the radius to about, the height to about 20, radius to about 2, and duplicate it. So let's see, it's at the extreme, and we'll need 4 views to actually position it properly. So let's go to the top view and position it at this point, and we choose our next capsule, position it here. So what we do next is okay. So from the picture you can tell it's rotated at an angle. You can't really tell the angle, and I'm not ready to sort of go and measure. So holding the shift button, we can just rotate it by 25 degrees and rotate this by negative 25. Good. I think it looks pretty good so far. Next, we need our eyes. And for our eyes, we need a sphere. But before that, let's just label this. Right. Antenna. And call this left antenna. Okay, so let's group the antennae together, group objects, and call this antenna. Group the legs together, call it legs. I know it's pretty boring, but it helps to be organized. I mean, it's very good when you're organized. So call these hands. Okay, so now we create our eyes. All we need is a sphere, pretty big. Set the radius to probably 20. Move it into position. Again, 4 views, top view. About so, and the radius is still pretty big for the head, so we set it to about 10. Move it into the head and negative 26. Duplicate it, set it to 26. Take a look at our perspective view. This looks more like a bug. A bug Android. Yeah. Let's take a look. Very funny. So what we could do is select both, set the radius to 5, and look at it again. Yeah, it looks good now. So rename this right eye, rename this left eye, TLC. Alright, so again we group them and call it eyes. And now we group all this and call it Android. So now we need to texture our Android. I mean, you could leave it this way. I mean, it's basically done, but still need to texture it for it to look real good. So we create a new material, call it Android, give it a color. Now the Android is green, slightly yellowish color. Okay, and think. Let's apply it and see. We apply it to all the parts which are green, which is basically everything. Yay! Our very own Android. Good. I didn't texture the eyes because the eyes are more of, a hole. Yeah. So for that we'll use a different technique. So let's save our project. Call this Android scene. Alright, so now that we have our Android guy right here, next we need to prepare our Apple logo. So we jump into Adobe Illustrator. I already have an Apple logo that I downloaded from the internet, so I'll just use that one. So we just drag it into Illustrator, go to Object, Image Trace, Make and Expand. So it's done. Now you go to your layers and turn off the background. Or you could actually, oh man, what's all this? You could actually just, oh man, you could actually delete it. Yeah, and you are good to go. So file, save as, call this Apple logo tut for tutorial, and save. But to use it in Cinema, you need to set it as Illustrator 8. Okay. Now we can close it and jump back to Cinema. So in Cinema, you go to File, Merge, and choose Apple logo tut. Click OK. When you import it, finds itself in a very funny position. So you zero the coordinates by typing it into the position. Hit T, scale it down, E, move it up. Okay, so whilst we are working on our Apple, let's just turn off our Android. And there we have it. So it's made up of two paths. We highlight both, connect objects, delete. We drag it out, delete this, and if we render right now, we won't see anything because it's just lines. It's just a path. It's not a real object. So to make it visible, we need to use an extrude NURBS. NURBS stand for non-uniform rational B-spline. Don't worry about that. So we drag our path into the extrude NURBS. That's how it works. And ta-da! We have our Apple in 3D. So on the extrude NURBS, we can increase the depth. So let's set it to 100. So if we look at it now, we have a huge block of Apple. So let's rename my extrude NURBS and call it Apple. Okay, so we are done with the second phase of our tutorial, and we need to texture our apple before we can break it into pieces like we have over here. Okay, so let's texture apple. Create a new material, call it apple inner, and let's give it a texture. So I have some rough textures that we can use. Some stony textures which I just took off the internet, and everything else is okay. You just need to apply a bump map to it. Bump maps use the data from the white and the black pixels to create depression and elevation for your texture, so that gives your texture life. So we will use that same texture as before, and we will set the strength to say -90, and we are good to go. We drop that on our apple. If we render it right now, you don't see much of a difference. Stand it to the side, render. We can see the texture has been applied to every part except for the frontal parts. So when you click on the texture icon over here, the texture tag, and you come down to its properties, you can change that from UVW mapping to cubic, and when we render, now it looks better. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is we need to fracture our apple. We need to break it into pieces, so that we can show that Android has defeated it, sort of like in this picture. Yeah, so what we do is we convert our extrude NURBS to an editable object, but before then let's reapply our texture, and I'll explain that in a bit. So we would make a copy of our extrude NURBS or apple, and we'll hide it, just so when we make any mistake we can refer to the original, because from here most of the things we are going to do are going to be pretty irreversible. So let's even save our scene. So Control S, I've saved my scene, and with my Apple Extrude NURBS object selected, I press C. You could press C, or you could come and click on this icon. Convert a parametric object into a polygonal object. What that means is it allows you to now work on the individual points, the polygons, the edges. So press C, and we have our apple. Okay, so what we do next is we need to break our apple apart. So again, let's duplicate it, and let's call this control. Now to break it up, there are so many ways, but a quicker way would be to use a free plugin by Nitro 4D. The site, I'll put the site up, nitro4d.com, and here's a plugin called Thrausi or whatever it is, Thrausi. So we click Thrausi, and what we'll do is it will take our object and break it into whatever number of pieces we require of it, whilst making it a dynamic object. So first of all, we want to break our apple, say, into 10 pieces. So we type 10 for our apple object selected and click break now. Okay, so Thrausi has broken it down into 10 pieces, and we'll break the 10 pieces each into 10 more pieces to give us 100 pieces. So that will take a bit of a time, and I'll pause the recording and we'll return when it's done. Okay, so I'm done fragmenting my apple model, and I broke it first into 10 pieces, then into another 10 pieces, and I broke all the 100 pieces into 2. So we have 200 different fragments. Okay, so what we will do next is what it gave us a fracture object and a rigid body or dynamic body tag, which means now we can enable dynamics to it. So I'll first group this one and call it rigid apple, and I'll duplicate it and call this one standing apple. Okay, so this is about that point in time where we enable our floor object, and let's scale it up even more. Okay, and let's make sure that our standing apple is actually sitting on our floor plane. Okay, and our rigid apple is somewhere above in the sky. Good. So we go back to our perspective view, and for some strange reason we have 3 apples, which doesn't make too much sense to me. Okay, so let's render it and see. Yeah, 3 apples, which is very, 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 very strange, but not to worry. And rigid apple, we turn it on. Okay, this is our control apple. Which shouldn't be seen, by the way, but somehow it's being seen. Good. So we apply a simulation to a collider body to our floor, and with our rigid apple pieces and dynamics bodies, we disable self collisions. We set the bounce to 0 and the friction to 100%, and yep, that's it. Click play. So we have our apple and the crushed pieces. All around it. So let's wait till the point where they are all on the floor. Somewhere like this, and render. Good. So this is going to be how it's going to look like. Now we go to our standing apple and we select pieces of it and just delete them at random. Just delete. Let's go ahead and delete, so that it will look like those deleted pieces are the ones on the floor. So delete as much as you like. I'm just selecting and pressing the delete button. Okay, so let's render and see. Yeah, get in there. Now notice my rigid apple, and the head of it is still hanging somewhere in space. What do we do about that? You will just turn it off all together. Okay, so now when we zoom in, let's see what we are getting. Nice. A very messed up apple. Okay, so let's take a final look. Nice. I think we are good to go. So let's zoom out and save, and turn back our Android on. Select our Android, scale it down even further, and position it right where you want it. Okay, so we have the basics done, and what else? Now for lighting, usually I just use one of the presets, 3-point light setup. You render, ta-da! Some good lighting, some nice specular highlights, and we'll just give our Android guy some reflection, texture. We choose Fresnel, and let's see how it looks now. Yeah, way better. So next, what we could do is actually give our Android character some character. You know, yeah, so have some textures that we could use to give them some scratches, you know, like somebody who's been to war and all that has succeeded. Yep. So go for grungy textures, and you choose any low one, something like, yeah, that should do, and set it up real high, close, render. Yeah. Now he doesn't look so cute, does he? Yeah. Okay. So basically, this is it. And let's see, what else can we do? Okay, so what we could also do is, you know, in our original picture, the Android guy, bears a flag with Google on it. So let's see how we can reproduce that as soon as possible. Okay, so let's bring our Android guy closer to the camera. Let's shift our perspective to the left a bit. That's in our original picture. And yeah, bring him closer to the camera, move him to the left a bit, over here, and let's start creating our flag real quickly. So for the flag, we can see it's a cylinder with a sphere on top, and then the material for the flag. So let's see, cylinder, height 300, radius 5. No, 5 is still big. Radius 2. Okay, move it up. Oh, the height is terrible. 200, and let's go into all 4 views and position it properly. Okay, so back to our perspective view. Still the height is too much, we set it to 100, and let's take a quick look. Okay, I think the radius is still pretty big, so we set it to 1, and take a quick look. Yeah, that's more like it. And quickly, sphere radius 2. Where are you? Okay, position it again, go to 4 views, align it perfectly. Let's see. Okay, it seems to be in the right area. Now let's look at perspective. Move it a bit to the right. Render. A bit to the left. So render. Still a bit to the left. Render. Good, we have it. So what we do next is we need a plane width 100, height 50. Bring it up, rotate it 90 degrees. And yeah, move it into position. Again, using our 4 views, we try and send it to the right position. Looks pretty good to me. And we need to create a new material, but first of all, let's combine these 3 objects. Let's group them, call them flag. Okay, looks like our plane needs to move a bit to the left. Let's see. Okay, looks pretty good for now. And let's create a material for the flag. We call this shaft. That's for the long part of the flag. And we create another material for flag cloth, and here we put texture into it. So I downloaded an image from the net. And I think that's all. That's pretty easy. So we drop this one on this one, and under the content browser, let's choose a chrome material for our Yep, let's choose a chrome material for our pole and our little circle. Okay, now to add the effect where it looks like the flag is being blown in the wind, we just come to effects and choose wind. So depending on the position of our wind object, it tells us how the flag is going to move. So we drag our plane, our wind into our plane, and you can see it's already started blowing. Yay! So, and the amplitude, the lower value of amplitude will give you a lower size rather will give you a more sorry, yeah, so size, let's set it to 20 and probably 15. Maybe 5. No, 5. Set it to 13. Doesn't look so good. Let's try 10. 18. I like this. Or even 17. Or 16. It looks good. So we are good to go. Final render, and everything is almost done. So now all we need is 1 or 2 touches to complete our work. For example, our floor, we can give it a material, and we give it a bit of reflection, texture, Fresnel. Take a look. I think it's a bit too reflective, so we set it to 1. We blur it out a bit. And we adjust the mix strength. In fact, let's blur it out a lot. Okay, so 3, and we adjust the brightness. Let's see what we get. Yeah, so we just need to edit our final render settings. So effect, we go to ambient occlusion, that allows sort of like shadows in between, and anti-aliasing we choose best. It will kill your processor, but it will give you better, smoother render. So we save our project, save
It ain't easy to live right but a man gotta do it.
Video
It ain't enough to
tutorials.
just talk, a man gotta prove it. Yeah, if you
All
ever
this
walked a mile in my
typography.
shoes, you would understand my pain and my praise. So I'ma serve God all of my days. Days. You're one and only son, left this glory, came to die, so I live holy. So now I'm dead to the old me. Yeah, you the anchor to hold me down when pride is trying to float me. And you gave me the strength to put every sinful desire in me on the low key. When I swear you were there to scold me, never happened to break, you were there to mold me. Cause the old me got me living in the red view. Then I met you, Lord, now I got a clear view. So I walk with the
Yep, so this is our final render. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, sorry if it's too long, let me know what you think. Yeah, and yeah, if you like it, click the like button below. Alright, yeah, have a great day. Let me see what you make from this tutorial. Okay, cheers, bye.